This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's right. It's that time again, the time we long for each week. Yes, it is my pleasure and honor to bring you tonight, all the way from his forest lair in East Prussia, the king of bling, the master of disaster, the man who knows it is better to be feared than loved, the voice of his generation, the hope of millions, the generalissimo of the airwaves, the world's premier counter-jihad chat host. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you straight from our studios in beautiful downtown Burbank, California. You know him as Jamie. We call him Sir. That's right. It could only be one man. There could only be one legend. The inimitable, the unfathomable, the incomprehensible, Jamie Glazov.
Thank you so much. And the crowd goes wild. Robert Spencer, welcome to the Glazov gang. Excellent introduction.
Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, it is Robert Spencer, the director of Jihad Watch and the author of the new book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to ISIS. And now from the world of comedy and entertainment to the serious issues of our time. Robert, let us begin with the theme of how America, with the oversight now of Obama, being flooded with Muslim refugees and immigrants.
Jamie, the Islamic State threatened in February to flood Europe with 500,000 refugees. And then the refugee influx started. As soon as it started in September, the Islamic State announced that they had already gotten 4,000 of their men into Europe and that more were coming all the time. The Lebanese education minister, in an interview around that time, he said that among the refugees in his country on their way to Europe were 20,000 active jihadis. Now Barack Obama wants to bring the refugees, at least, I believe it's 100,000 in the next year, into the United States. And there's no way. He promises they will be vetted. As a matter of fact, when pressed upon exactly how they were going to be vetted, the State Department spokesman said, that's classified. Okay, but it's actually just a total smokescreen because there's no way these people can be vetted. There's no records to vet them there's no records to vet them by. There is no indication of anything that they may have done in the past recorded anywhere. And so there is absolutely no way to do what he's promising to do. And in bringing all these people over here, he's making us all more unsafe.
Thank you, Robert. Well, even just recently, the evidence suggested that just in 1 month, 8 refugees were indicted, Syrian refugees that had come in. This is just 1 month. The ones that were caught, 8 had joined ISIS. I mean, one person can do a lot of damage. They've caught 8 here in 1 month. What does this mean in terms of everything happening?
Well, what it means is the president's being a total demagogue about this issue. When he says, the opponents of this plan are afraid of some widows and orphans, and the opponents of this plan are being religious bigots and saying we should leave only allow the Christians in and leave the Muslims out. Really, it's not about religious bigotry at all, Jamie. As we know, it's about the fact that Christians are not likely to be jihad terrorists trying to kill Americans, whereas you can't be sure among the Muslim refugees if there will be jihad terrorists among them.
Robert, Daniel Greenfield covered this in his blog, The Point, the other day. A few years back, a poll was conducted among Syrian Muslims. 3 out of 4 supported funding Hamas, Hezbollah, and Al-Qaeda. So you've got roughly 75% supporting these terrorist organizations. And who in their right mind would want to bring members of a community or an environment into this country? What's the thinking behind this?
Well, you can't think that it has anything to do with national security. It seems as if Obama is continuing his socialist leveling of the United States, and that he believes that in this multiculturalist diversity will be somehow enriching. And that may be in some way, but the national security issues ought to be paramount, and they're not on his radar screen at all.
Robert, James O'Keefe just released an undercover video he did. He had a reporter going undercover. They took a video of top Clinton aide Huma Abedin at a Hillary Clinton fundraiser for women. And she's just, you can just see she's just in ecstasy about bringing these Syrian refugees into America and demonizing the people that might be against it. And as I was watching that, I was thinking, what is this woman even doing on a stage and speaking? And I mean, brother Muslim Brotherhood, late father Muslim Brotherhood, mother Muslim Brotherhood. She herself was an editor for an organization, Muslim Brotherhood. Where are the questions being asked of her? Did she have a security clearance? And another thing, this organization that she was an editor for, the Institute for Muslim Minority Affairs, one of its key objectives is imposing Sharia on the West and on the United States eventually through Hijra. So in many respects, we see the dots connecting here, right?
Absolutely, Jamie, and it's a shame that nobody dares to call Huma Abedin to question about any of this, because the politically correct establishment has decided that it's racist and bigoted to even ask these questions. And so when Representative Michelle Bachmann in the summer of 2012 wanted an investigation of Muslim Brotherhood influence in the United States, and Huma Abedin came up as a result of it, even John McCain in her own party attacked Bachmann for even raising the question. But the question remains, with all these Brotherhood connections, with her employment in a Brotherhood publication, how do we know that she's not continuing to be connected with the Brotherhood? How do we know that she has not influenced the Obama administration through Hillary Clinton to favor go down the Brotherhood path that it has consistently followed throughout the Obama administration? Why is it illegitimate to ask these questions? And yet even the Republicans have all let it all go after Bachmann was silenced on this question.
Absolutely. I mean, even her mother, a very, it's very well known. She's pro-Sharia, working for pro-Sharia organization. Just to even ask Huma Abedin, do you support or renounce your mother's views? Yes or no? But apparently it's racist or whatever to ask such a question.
Exactly. And so this shows how really degenerated, how drastically, I should say, the American public discourse has degenerated, such that these kinds of questions cannot be asked, and even those who dare to ask them are stigmatized and marginalized, when these are legitimate questions. And unfortunately, we're going to be paying the consequences of ignoring this kind of thing, not only in regard to Huma Abedin, but to Brotherhood influence in the Obama administration in general. This is something that the opposition should have been relentless in pushing on over the last 4 years, instead of just letting it go.
And Robert, if somebody had worked for and was connected with and had family members that were connected to the Ku Klux Klan, to Nazism, you would think that some questions would be asked. How is the Muslim Brotherhood any better than those hateful organizations?
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood is just a little bit older and a little bit more diversified in its operations. It has indulged in violence, and of course Hamas considers itself to be the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. But in general, the Muslim Brotherhood and jihad terror groups, they have the same goal: to impose Sharia over the world, to subjugate non-Muslims under the rule of Islamic law. The Brotherhood's no different from Al-Qaeda and Hamas and ISIS in that respect. As a matter of fact, the Muslim Brotherhood despises ISIS because it established a caliphate, which is something that to do ever since it was founded in 1928.
Robert, thank you. Is the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist group?
I suppose that depends on your definition of terrorist. Certainly, it wants to subvert the existing order in every non-Muslim state and establish Islamic law there. But generally, it is not, as far as I know, at least in the West, working through illegal means to do that. It is generally, in the United States, pursuing the path of public pressure via its organs in the U.S., the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Muslim American Society, the Islamic Society of North America, and so on, and using the politically correct mindset to manipulate the left into giving it what it wants. And so far, that's been so effective, it doesn't have to resort to terrorism.
Absolutely, but in terms of wanting to impose Sharia, Sharia as a system itself terrorizes and oppresses and persecutes humanity, especially
In
women.
that sense, then absolutely yes. Yeah, no doubt that they are.
Robert, let me ask you this. I find this very interesting. So the chorus here in the West, led by the left and the Muslim Brotherhood, is Islam has nothing to do with terrorism, but be nice to the Muslims or they might turn to terrorism. So how could this be? If Islam has nothing to do with terrorism, then why will Muslims turn to terrorism if you're not nice to them?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The contradiction is open and plain and undeniable. And yet, even here, the media elites just seem to repeat these things without any kind of self-criticism or self-reflection about how absurd what they're saying really is. In reality, the terrorist impulse is something that's deeply rooted in Islamic texts and teachings, and consequently, Muslims resort to terrorism when they're angry or frustrated because this is something that it is said for them, they're told to do in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and by the example of Muhammad. And so it's really a tacit acknowledgement of that fact when the media says these things.
Robert, I was getting very worried about all the successes that ISIS is scoring, but I've been relieved lately. Obama has come forward. He's going to fight ISIS by fighting climate change. I was just so relieved when I heard that.
Yeah. Well, that whole thing comes out of the idea that poverty causes terrorism. And climate change is supposedly responsible for all sorts of social dislocation and poverty in Syria. And so, therefore, because there was all this social dislocation and poverty in Syria, then people turned to terror groups. But if that were true, then we would see Syrian Christian terror groups and Yazidi terror groups. But we don't see anything like that because Islam really does have different teachings that mandate violence against unbelievers, and that's why they turned to the terror groups. So now Obama would essentially have us believe that the Christians did not turn to terror because they have different weather from the Muslims in Syria, as if it only rained on the Christians while the Muslims were in a drought.
Well, the implication is that if it gets too cold or arguably too hot, a Syrian Muslim might get violent, but a Syrian Christian or Yazidi won't get violent. So there's different reactions to the weather.
Yeah, well, that's because the weather isn't really what causes the terrorism. The teachings are what cause the terrorism, and the Yazidis and the Christians don't have teachings mandating violence against unbelievers.
Robert Spencer, I think you alone, within 1 minute, can sum up the most wise ideas and thoughts on what's going on in the world. Under a minute, go.
I don't know how to answer that question, but I'll just say something here, and that is that the denial that is all pervasive in the media and in the public square about the nature and magnitude of the jihad threat is extremely dangerous, and the longer it remains, the more vulnerable we all are. And now with Obama bringing in all these refugees, we're in even bigger trouble than before because, look, he's saying the final thing about vetting, Jamie, is this. He's saying he's going to vet these refugees for an ideology he doesn't acknowledge exists. How is he going to vet them for jihad sentiments when he would admit there's a jihad? And so we're living in an absurd age, and it's an absurd presidency, and everything it says and does is absurd. There's no way that they can screen out people who hold to a worldview that they constantly deny exists.
Robert Spencer, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have your book handy?
No, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, get Robert Spencer's new book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to ISIS, and get it immediately. Right, Robert?
Yeah, any self-respecting bookstore will have it. And Amazon.com.
Robert, God bless you. Thank you for being a noble truth teller in our world today.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure and an honor. I apologize for being tongue-tied tonight. It's very late out here, later than it is where you are.
You always are very articulate and eloquent, Robert Spencer, as well as brave and noble. and we'll see you soon. And to the viewers of the Glazov gang, please go to jamieglazov.com to support this show if you like the show, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Support the show even if you don't like it.
And we'll see you on the next edition of the Glazov gang. Good night.